Yeah, it's interesting because there are a couple of different factors. I think the most important element in any person's progress or development is the principle of free will. Free will. Okay. Now, for religious people, most religious people understand this. Free will means willingness, or it translates as ability to do something. Yeah. And free will is God's gift to the universe. It's where God doesn't tell you what to do. He lets you choose. You can make a choice. And that's free will. Right? We all know what's good and what's bad and what's right and what's wrong, or at least we should. I think we do, deep down inside. I think we all understand that. But we have free will, which is we have to decide ourselves what we do. And that's why I get frustrated when people say something just happened. What do you mean? Like, nothing just happens, right? What do you mean something just... See, things just don't happen. You can connect with that passive language. People use passive grammar to say it was done. They don't say somebody did it. They say it was done, and they don't include a person, or they don't own. They don't own the activity. Yeah, and this exists also in very polite and very formal language, because in very polite language we don't say who did it. We say what happened, but we don't say who did it. But it also exists for a different reason at a very low level, because people don't want to own their activities. And I've noticed this in a lot of people who have, in a lot of places where people have problems. They say, oh, it happened. Like it happened to me. Like I didn't have a choice. And this free will choice exists everywhere. You always, each second of the day, human beings have to make it like, what do I do now? What do I do now? Where do I go? You know, what do I drink? What do I eat? Who do I talk to? What problem do I solve first? What clothes do I wear? When do I go to the toilet? Whatever. We're always making these decisions through the day. And free will is the fact that we get to choose. We get to choose what it is that we do. And most people don't want to accept any kind of responsibility for where they are and what is happening around about them. They don't want to. Like why am I here? I'm here because of all the choices I made to get me here. And if I have any problems right now, this is where I need to be to solve the problems that I have. And the problems exist because I exist. Right? My problems exist because of me. It's sad but true. Right? And everybody wants to externalize their oh, this happened to me, or this came from somewhere else, or yeah, but you put yourself there in the situation. It's, oh, he took advantage of me. Well, you have to put yourself in a position where someone can take advantage of you. Yeah, you know, they stole my car. I did leave it unlocked. Well, yeah, if you leave your car unlocked, then you know, somebody will have access to whatever, right? So you've got to own your own life. You've got to lock the door. You've got to lock the gate. You've got to, you know, take reasonable precautions for your own life. And people don't want to understand that it's your choice. You know, everyone who ends up homeless, we talked about homeless people earlier, everyone who ends up homeless had a point in their life where they made a choice, and the result was they were homeless. And maybe it was the right choice at the time, but they still made the choice. And this decision, this concept of free will, is hard for a lot of people to understand, because it means that if anything is wrong in my life, I am the cause of it. And most people don't want to own that, because it's really difficult. And when you understand that, you understand that if you've got a problem to solve, if you have a problem, then you have a problem to solve, because you need to solve it because you have that problem in your life, and you're not there because you're not ready to be there. You know, how many times in business do we want to be here? But if we are there, we're not ready to be there. We don't have the knowledge, we don't have the experience, we don't have the contacts, we don't know how things work, right? You know, you take an amateur football player, put him in a professional game, and he's lost, because he's not ready for it, because it's usually a slow process of learning for most people, and we all want to be there, but very few people actually want to take and make the decisions necessary to get there. There's an economic principle which has been studied by psychologists, which is that 90% of the wealth of most businesses is created by 10% of the people who work in the business. And what this means is that 90%, 9 out of 10 people who work in any company are only creating 10% of the wealth, whereas the 10th person is creating 90% of the wealth, and that's true for most larger companies. And this is really important, because there's this, as I said earlier, there's a push for everything to be equal, everything to be the same for people. But not everybody puts the same energy into into their work, and it might not be just about, you know, physical energy and time. It might be in terms of a good idea which is going to save the company money. I mean, it doesn't take one good idea can be equal to a year of work, if that good idea will save the company money. If you've got one good idea which saves the company money in a certain area, then, you know, that's as good as one employee working for a year. Maybe it's the same cost value amount. Like, you pay an employee for a year, and somebody comes up and says, well, you know, it's I can save you just as much money if we do this. Oh, okay, maybe this idea is good. So it's interesting that just one little thing like that, and I think everybody has these thoughts about how things can be better, but very few people make decisions about them. Very few people are like, oh, we could do this. Yeah, yes, but they don't, because they have their habits in their daily life, and so decisions that people make is key, and that's free will in a religious context. That God made the universe, but He also gave you the choice about how you want to live in the universe, and that's the test that most people fail, because they can't accept the crazy realities. Like, maybe there's people in your company that create more value for the company than you, and maybe they should get some extra benefits because of it. And maybe you feel that's not fair, but sorry, things aren't equal. There will be certain advantages to certain people at certain points in time, and it's unavoidable. it's really unavoidable, and the world's a mad place. I was watching some videos on YouTube with my kids yesterday, and we watched Indy 500 racing. You know, it's like the fastest car races in the world on the circuit, and so these drivers are, was it 220 plus miles per hour average speed. So on the straights they're doing 250, 260, and on the corners they're doing 200, right? And he's like, there's the camera and the car's going.
It's Indy cars.
Yeah, it's Indy 500 racing. It's the fastest races in the world, and
In the USA.
yeah, in the USA. And so these cars are going, and this is miles per hour, right? They're doing 240, 250 miles per hour. And there's like 10 centimeters between the wheels of the cars. 10 centimeters. And there's 3 cars doing 240 miles. It's not. Yeah, it's beyond dangerous. It's like beyond. Beyond. Yeah. Somewhere beyond the seas. Anyway, never mind. It's a Robbie Williams song. Yeah, I was mesmerized by it. Like, I was thinking, why would you want to? Why do you want to get in a car and drive that quickly on a track and be constantly so close to death, where you know, first of all, it's amazing that the cars actually stay on the ground, because traveling at that speed, you know, it's the same speed that airplanes fly at, right? So you sort of imagine that if there was some problem with some part of the car would just go off into the air, and you understand at that level, at that point, you understand the value of making the right decision at the right moment, and why are these people paid so much? Well, first of all, they're crazy, right? Because normal people wouldn't do this. And the commentators who were talking about the race, or they were drivers in the past, because, you know, drivers know that they know what's happening. So the drivers, you know, they talk about the race, and the drivers are like, they're all crazy. Because it's like there's 3 laps to go. They've done like 500 laps, and there's 3 laps to go, and there's 12 cars in the space of about, you know, between here and that building over there. You know, there's 12 cars traveling at 240 miles an hour, and it's wild. And but you understand the importance of each decision that you make, because it has to be right. Every decision has to be correct. You make one wrong decision, and that's it. And it doesn't matter how many right decisions you make. You can make 1,000 right decisions in the race, but you make one wrong decision. It's over. It's finished. And it was for some of the cars in the race that I was watching, where one driver is 10 centimeters too far on one side, and, you know, there's a giant accident, and bits and pieces of cars flying everywhere, and 100,000 people going, ah! and can you imagine the wives watching their husbands? Can you imagine? Like there's a bottle of water, they'd be just eating through the bottle of water.
Yeah.
Watching that and having to do that every week. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But it's the value of the decision, and these people are. It usually works out that the people who are paid more are the people who have to make those difficult decisions. Why does the manager of the team get so much? Why do the players get so much? Because they're able to make decisions like this. They're able to know what's right. Okay, this is the right way. This has to be done. We go this way, and somebody has to do that. And most people can't make those decisions. And people with low IQs have low quality decision making skills. They're not. They don't understand risk, especially not over the long term. How many people know what they're going to be in 6 months, 1 year, 5 years? It's a complicated question for a lot of people. And I was doing that in some coaching a few weeks ago. I was doing like start of the year. Okay, what's your vision for 3 months, 6 months? People are like, not sure. Because I think one of the secrets to having successful plans, and this comes from what sports teams do, is back planning. You start with the end point. Okay, where do we want to be at which time? And then plan backwards to the present moment. And then you can see if you're going in the right direction. And people don't back plan. They try to forward plan. And that's it doesn't work. It doesn't sort of work that way. It's sort of counterintuitive, because intuition sort of tells you take one step at a time. But it's counterintuitive, because to understand that you've got to start at the end, like the vision of building the house, right? You start to build it here, but the plan already is the finished product here. So you're actually working backwards to get everything done, rather than forwards. And most people don't understand that. It's through the year, the numbers of the days goes up, right? Mm-hmm. But really, it actually goes the opposite way. Because it's like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. It's actually the opposite. It's like day 365, day 364, day 3 is actually counting down rather than counting up to make things work. Anyway, those are my thoughts and observations, and it's interesting, because before in the past I didn't understand these things. Just like working with people and talking with them and looking at different pieces of information. It's when I was younger, it sounded good that we could all have everything equal, and it would all be great for everybody. But the older I get, the more I see that that's not really the best way to do everything.